All right, so first guest, Coach Chris Scott. How you doing today?
Doing well. Excited to be the first one. A little nervous, maybe see what's ahead. But I guess we'll find out here shortly.
Yeah. Well, first things first, I wanted to thank you for being the first guest of the Neptune's Room podcast.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah. So, your upbringing. Let's see how you got started with football and where you fell in love with the game.
Yeah. So, my dad is. I guess I tell everybody I'm a retired military brat because my dad's obviously retired military. But bounced around a little bit, and he born in Jersey, and then went out. Met my mom in Tennessee, so we lived there for a little bit, and then he went to the military, and we went all the way out to California. And I remember my first experience with football was just kind of throwing the ball around at recess, and but all of a sudden. One of my friends was playing flag football, and they had already had sign-ups and all that kind of stuff. But I would go watch his dad coached, and I would go watch him practice, and he would let me do practice stuff with him, like as an assistant, like coach at that age. And so it was kind of neat thinking going all the way back to then. Like I just kind of fell in love with the game. It was the 49ers, Joe Montana, Ronnie Lott days. Ronnie Lott was probably obviously one of my favorite players. So I kind of got started with a little bit of developing some love for the game there, and then came out here and got started with the Plaza Chiefs and Plaza Raiders, and then from there had some great coaches along the way. Dad being in and out because of having to obviously serve and be away at 9-10 months out of the year at times is kind of tough, but always being around coaches that kind of like mentored me and stuff like that kind of helped me not be so much of a knucklehead when Dad was not home, because it's easier to probably behave when he's around as opposed to when he's not. And then he moved us over from Green Run Plaza area, and Ocean Lakes opened up in '94, and then obviously met Coach Prince and played, and the rest is history from playing to coaching.
What college did you go to?
So my first year I went to Towson State. They were in the Patriot League at the time, so they played against schools like Lehigh and Bucknell, so kind of like stepped down from the Ivy League. And I was kind of really, I was known as the guy that came from down south. Everybody else was kind of like from really the closest like Philly or DC, so it's kind of funny that way. But being from, born in Jersey and kind of up there, it was a good experience. I remember starting off, played a little bit of slot receiver, which I was more of a defensive guy in high school, but I played both ways. And then I asked during the spring game to go over to the defensive side, and I remember being the 14th string safety, and that was a little bit humbling there. But and that was obviously before they had some of the scholarship numbers and stuff like that, where you're getting your teams together and not having as many. So but I worked my way through spring ball and ended up working on my way all the way up to where I got partial scholarship and ended up being the nickel back. So kind of worked my way through there. Always kind of the guy that maybe didn't start off as a superstar or this, but kind of had to earn and grind my way to play. And then transferred to Hampton-Sydney and had a pretty good career there.
Pretty good, or like you want to say?
Yeah. We got started probably that freshman year. Was a little tough. Kind of probably went through my frustrations. It was like I transferred from a Division I AA school, and then I had guys playing in front of me here and there, and didn't get as much playing time, which was a good experience. Now as a coach, you kind of look back and you're talking to your guys that they go from being the big fish in high school and then the little guy in the pond, right, when they get to college. So that was a good experience for me. But then Coach Favorette took over my second year, my sophomore year, and I think a big pivotal moment was, tough part of my life was losing my mom, mama's boy. She was age 42, had a heart attack, and obviously the week that I came back after having to bury mom, and ended up as playing the number 2 team in the country, and ended up becoming the national player of the week, so to speak, because I ended up having 17 tackles, 2 fumble recoveries, 2 caused fumbles and 2 INTs in one game. And, we put up a pretty good fight against that team. And from there, it kind of taught me, you kind of tighten up when mom walks into the room, but, knowing that she was always looking over me kind of taught me I needed to be at my best at all times. So, and it was, and had a good week from there. And then from there, it seemed like that was the expectation for now on, and ended up having a pretty good career. Finished up and ended up breaking some interception records and being inducted to their Hall of Fame. So a great experience all the way around.
So you said you played D3, but you went from D1. So I just wanted to ask, how does that affect how you coach your players and go about scouting with them? Since not a lot of people are adept to a D3 or a D2, they don't really look at that as just D1.
Yeah, I think that, to me, I always tell the guys there's a college for everybody.
Yeah.
There really is, but it's kind of finding what your fit is. I think I saw that I could play at. I always wanted to go to a school that had a big city close to it, because obviously being young and wanting to go hang out and have a good time. Yeah, you get DC and Baltimore right there. It was kind of a good pick, I thought, at the time. My mom wasn't happy with it, so when I got to Hampton, Sydney, she started getting sick, needed to get closer to home. But it really kind of, as you asked that question, it kind of shaped. There is a college for everybody, and sometimes that goal was to get and play at the University of Tennessee. Your mom's from Knoxville, Peyton Manning, all that good stuff, and I wanted to get to that, but size, speed, some of those things, you start to realize as you get closer to graduating what the chances are of playing that. But I think the guys that go to Division III, they have to love it more. At Division I level, it turns into such a job. They're so routine. You're told when you can pick your classes, when you get out of class, when you have to be there to lift, when study hall, all that kind of stuff. Division III, it's you could go, but they don't have some of the same structure. But if you love it, those are the ones who stick around. It's not well, now I can go and chill and move away from football a little bit and not have to have some of that discipline. But that's the part, I think, that's the difference between the divisions. But I think it opened my eyes up to be able to go. Most people don't go Division I.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to look at it on social media. I'm D1 this and I'm D1 that, and no, they're not most of the time. There's a small percentage that are actually true D1. But with that doesn't mean anything less. There's people that go from Division III and make it into the NFL and become great players. So there's still great coaches and great experiences, and I had a great experience. I think looking back at it, I could play at the Division I AA level. I definitely proved that while I was there, but then played Division III and had a great career. So I think it helped me to be able to show guys how to be recruited, and that there is a space or a spot for everyone, but let's find out what that is. I think at the beginning, if you ask them what their goals are, they don't never really put down I want to go play at this Division III school,
Yeah.
Kind of, it's one of those, and then they find out in hindsight, how, it was great for me, educationally and athletically, especially with losing my mom, a smaller college, all the financial ladies, all the ladies in that in the building, they adopted me as their son throughout college and helped take care of me, so it ended up being a great fit, and so you kind of get more of that at-home type feel sometimes with those schools.
What about starting your coaching career?
Yeah, so even my junior year of playing, I knew I wanted to coach, football. So I would come back, and Coach Prince, who was the coach at Ocean Lakes High School, he would let me come back and do summer workouts, and I would help out a little bit with 7-on-7 teams. And then there was always this, you could go to, there's a camp at University of Virginia that Coach Prince used to always take us to. And I remember going there, and I was still a player in college, but he would let me come, and I worked it with him as an assistant coach for 3 or 4 days. And so that stuff slowly got me into coaching. And then when I graduated, it was pretty much, hey, you can come over here and be an assistant. And that was in 2003. So I graduated mid-year, and then came out and started helping him with conditioning and all that good stuff, and was an assistant, through 2008, became a head coach there. So, but he's working with him and Coach Prince, Coach Head, were kind of some of my first beginning coaches, not only that taught us great fundamentals, but then also were mentors and still mentors to this day.
Okay, so since you were talking about D3 players that can make it to the league, were there any players that you have coached that have surprised you and how far they were able to get And
Yeah, I'm obviously coached a lot along the way. Don't want to, disrespect anyone by forgetting about anyone. But one that does stick out right when you ask that question is little Billy Higgins. He, kind of go way back. His mom and I were friends at the Plaza Middle School days. Good friends with my sister, great friends with my mom, and family knows one another. And remember, like, even picking the scab on the playground and like, hey, we're blood brother, blood sister, kind of type deal. And then go your separate ways, and then all of a sudden I find myself coaching her son, But he actually made his way through Ocean Lakes, pretty tough, and then ended up going on to Ferrum. But undersized linebacker that really didn't back down from anybody. Played with a chip on his shoulder. I think when he decided that that's something that he wanted to do in regards to go to college, and then he got obviously serious about it. And I mean, just as what we would refer to that kind of a dog, straight dog on the field, and has had a pretty good career and made his way all the way up to where I know like he's semi-pro team. So he's definitely one that undersized, found a way to love the game no matter what, because he loved playing people, really loves hitting people. He takes it a little serious, right? I like those guys that kind of take football a little too serious. I think sometimes parents might be like, well, Coach Scott's a little serious about this. I'm known for being too serious, though, at times, and that's Billy. I think he's done a great job of teaching him leadership and all that good stuff too. And it's great to kind of see him, reach and attain the success as he has so far.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite football players type to watch. Like the more undersized, they don't stand out, but they have that, like you said, chip on the shoulder and that grit and grind mentality, and they just will lay their life out on the line on the field.
When growing up, you had those like locker room stories, or your guys that you go to high school with, and our thing was always like, tell me I won't do it, or tell me I can't do it, and then it was like, I'll go do it, and it's like, so it's all the time is like laughing, joking around, doing something in the gym, and I don't know, pushing someone's buttons, and it's like, say I won't. And then it was like, well, you won't. And then for me, it was always like, well, I'll show you, I'll go do it, and I think that's kind of like, that was Billy probably like, I won't do it. Yeah, right, I'll do it, So, it's definitely, I think those guys are what kind of like is the heart of football. It's the biggest team sport. And even in the pros, you'll see guys that you have your superstars, but the league it's not made up of all superstars. You have to be good to get there, but guys have to find a way to stay on rosters. Like Shamarko Thomas, 5 foot, 5'8" and 3/4", 217-pound safety that really is like the little engine that could. You would think like, wow, he's massive, he's strong, from Ocean Lakes, but finds a way to stay 7-8 years in the league. And the average size at safety is 6 foot to 6'3" in the league. 6'3", and a guy like him finding the way to stay. So that's really the heart of football. But again, everybody kind of you see those 1%ers and you kind of gravitate to the I guess the stars, if you will. But yeah, I cheer for those guys as well.
So your coaching start as an assistant on Ocean Lakes, let me guess you were like a DB coach to start out?
Yeah, so we had to coach 2 positions when Coach Prince. So it was like receivers, DBs. And then help out. So this is the way that Coach Prince did things. So, yep, definitely did the defensive backs and the receivers. So that's kind of like how it started. And then, he let me do different things during 7-on-7 and learn from him and Coach Head and Morgan Roan. So, that's how I got started. And kind of came back home. So home kind of takes care of you sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm. For a few years. How did you get the job at Ocean Lakes, like after being an assistant?
Yeah, so it was kind of tough. So it was like Coach Prince is like a father to me to this day, a big time mentor for me through football. And I think it kind of came to a point to where, he was offered an opportunity from another principal, or from a principal that used to be at our school at Ocean Lakes that had retired and then gone to North Carolina. So those like deals where you could kind of retire from one state but then get paid, so the way that teachers and people can kind of like make a little bit extra money, And so he got presented with an opportunity to be able to retire from the state of Virginia and then, and still make money teaching and coaching down in Carolina and help supplement his really almost, I'm assuming, double his income kind of type deal. And you see a lot of that happen. And I don't think he really wanted to leave, but it was like one of those opportunities he couldn't turn down either, And I think I got lucky. The principal at the time, Dr. Askew, she I think she was she mentored me at times, along with coaching. I did some stuff with assistant basketball coach with Coach Head, did some track with Coach Lowry, and ended up becoming, first state championship Ocean Lakes won is in track, and
Coach Lowry.
yeah, great guy. Learned a lot from him. And so it was, that was kind of like how I made my way into coaching. And then Coach Prince ended up, taking that deal. And I think, like the story goes, Dr. Askew had like over 200 applicants or emails that were kind of like, and she's like, I didn't really even know that Coach Prince was looking at the time, but he kind of always surprised me, like, look, this might happen. And I'm like, I go home, like, put together like a 60 like page PowerPoint, and always like, if Dr. Askew asks, I want to be ready. And then she basically says, hey, I hear we have an opening with at the head coaching position, so would you like it? She didn't even interview me. She's like, I did all that stuff, like thinking like I don't even know if she knows. I didn't even know. And then she's like, but before you accept it, you gotta go home and talk to your wife and and talk it over. And I'm like, okay. And I go home like, I got it, babe. She's like, but she told me I had to ask you first, and so that was it. And it was like kind of a dream coming true in regards to going back to your high school coaching. I think that we had some good talent, and being one of the youngest head coaches in the area, she took a chance on me. And it's like, well, you never want to disappoint home, and so you got to come through. And it was great times, getting a chance to be a coach that played for the school, and then their first state championship that they get a chance to win and be part of that. So it's homegrown product, and a lot of great people there. My daughter goes there now. She's a sophomore at the math and science program. The apple fell from the tree right there. I couldn't have got into the math and science program. So we all grow up and get better, right?
Yeah. If I remember correctly, you guys couldn't really play outside of like the district, right? Yeah. So you had to get him to come up and have a scrimmage against his high school team.
Yeah, we did some good things, and we would go down there and do some 7-on-7 stuff. When I ended up going over to Bishop Sullivan, we went down there and took a team down there and kind of did 7-on-7. Coach would always say that kind of like, there's not as many people in the school, so they're a smaller division, but it was a great experience, and always a way, again, like that's where the I am somebody speech came from. It was Papa P. That's where it came from. And when he did it, man, I mean, I remember doing it as a player. He'd get up there spitting, and he had these green eyes that are like super green, and I didn't even know until I started coaching with him, but he's colorblind, but he's got these green eyes, and his red veins would pop out, and he's spitting everywhere. It's like face turning red, and it's just like that enthusiasm, kind of is something that always stuck with me. And so then again, it was like when he left, he thanks me to this day, but it was like, who's going to do the speech? And I'm like, well, I'm going to try. I ain't as good as Coach P, but I'm going to try. And it just ended up always becoming a staple there, and something that's always been special.
Yeah, I'll never forget, right after you left Ocean Lakes, we had a pep rally. We had another teacher try to do the I am somebody. Everyone was like quiet.
I remember the first time going to do it and saying I would do it, and I was late coming back into the assembly because I was in the coach's office throwing up. I was that nervous. It meant that much to me, and so it was like, all right, well, little did I know that every time that Coach Prince did it, I was trying to run out on the field with him. We actually did it out on the field with all school assemblies, like on the football field. We brought us, and then we started bringing, as we got more bleachers, we started coming into inside the gym. So it kind of started out there, and if you go back to like the yearbook, you see me like shirt and tie screaming right next to Coach Prince, and it's kind of like neat, kind of knowing like how it all turned out,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's shout out to whoever did that, because it was hard, following Coach P. Get him up there, and it's like he's done some camps with me and Shamarko. And Shamarko remembers I was his position coach, but when Coach P left, it was like going into his senior year, so he still remembers Coach P too. And he came back to some of Shamarko's camps and did it. And Coach P, OG right there.
Yeah. So starting out your head coaching career, you pretty much had instant success right away. So.
So it's kind of neat. So Justin Hunter was kind of a big time player at the time. younger guy, but I had Shamarko. I knew it was like, I think that when Coach Prince left, and even now to these days, when you have coaching turnovers, it's like some people are like, should I transfer? Should I leave? But it was kind of like unique because I knew that Shamarko was going to be one of the big time leaders for us early on, and already had such a good relationship with him from kind of being the position coach. It was like, look, if ST signs off on me, I knew like you could kind of like I could have the success with the locker room with the guys, like they would get behind me and believe in me, even though kind of being young and all that kind of stuff. But so it was one of those things. LaFonte Thurgood, our first quarterback. My daughter wears number 10 to this day because of him. But he was a rising sophomore. Get a chance to have him for the first 3 years of success. Of being a coach. So that really helped out. And he stepped on the scene and kind of like he was the Tim Tebow of our area. Like running everybody over, scoring touchdowns and stuff. So he was a great leader. And actually, I just got fitted. Hopefully I lose a little bit more weight, but got fitted for his wedding, so I'm going to be in his wedding, so that's pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to him and Izzy getting married. So, football, got lucky there. I feel that way all the time, and didn't know as much as I feel like I know now, obviously, but you had good players, and they kind of make you right. I remember, it was fourth and 18 with about 15 seconds left in the half going against Lancetown back in the day. And I turn around and I look at Coach Head and I'm like, should we call this Hail Mary? Like, what do you, should we punt the ball really? We don't want to give him the ball back, or on the other side of the 50. And he's like, maybe not 15 seconds, maybe 8. And he says, well, call a quarterback draw to LaFonte. I'm like, draw? How you going to get the end zone running the quarterback draw and it dropped back? Gone and scored. And I looked at Coach Head. I'm like, dang. He's like, he's like, again, one of those mentor older guys and stuff. And I was like, and Tay was that guy. It was fun. He was fun to watch. Obviously, could do it, and a great leader. And those guys helped me be successful and then learn football. And now he's back coaching with me, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so
that did not work for the Cowboys.
No, it did not.
But just more of the seasons you climbed into the mountaintop on Ocean Lakes. Just how was that state championship year for you? The first.
2012.
Yeah.
We got there and came up a little short. That was tough. You finally get there and then I felt like going back. We had a great play call. Simmons gets an interception midfield late in the game. The crazy part is that Churchy is our quarterback at the time, but he wasn't the starter.
He was the backup quarterback.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
So that was special. I lost hurdle, mud game. He goes to dive on actually pick up a ball, and 2 people come in and just take his knee out and tore everything. And it was like the air goes, and we were driving down to go score. Air goes out of the the stadium, and then Churchy comes in, and on third down it's like we got a penalty that play too, so it was 3rd and 33. He throws an incomplete pass, and it's like, oh crap,
season's over.
What's getting ready to happen? And we were the top seed, and Granby actually was the 8th seed at the time, but they were undefeated and we were undefeated, so it was a lot of good teams, but that were playing against one another, and it was like, oh crap, here we go. And then he drops back and throws up a ball to Austin, and Austin catches it, and we get the first down. And then from there, we ended up blowing the team out. So it was a good situation. Churchy led us. The guys pulled together defense, but then we get to the state championship game, and we fight and muscle back and get to where we end up calling a run play to Brendan Simmons, who I actually just saw working out. I saw him at Mount Trashmore the other day, 5:45 up there grinding. Shout out to Brendan, they never stopped going. And miss call here. Guy comes off the edge, and it's like the guard is running to the end zone, but the running back gets tripped up right 6 inches short. So that taught me 6 inches matter. That taught me alignment matters. It was you learn some of the biggest things from failures or setbacks. And I know that's a cliche in coaching, but I know there's a lot of people on that team that deserve to win that game, and you feel man, you wish you could have somehow found a way to get it done for those guys that graduated. But it was definitely something that motivated us to be able to get back to. I remember sitting in Dr. Askew's office, and I'm like, I know, Coach Head was pretty upset about the loss, and he's like, I've coached for like 30 years to just get to a chance to play in a state championship game. He's like, in tears nearly, like, I don't know if we'll get back to it. And I didn't feel the same, obviously, because I been coaching for like 3 years, and I'm like, well, I know we're going to get back. Like that was like, I told Dr. Askew that I just don't know when that's going to be. And, obviously fought our way to get back and win one in 2014. So that was obviously a special year.
Fast forward 2 years later, obviously you guys are winning. Did you see anything like a big difference between the 2012 and 2014 team?
Yeah, I think maybe some maturity. Even at the end of 2012, kind of had some shaking hands. Some guys maybe, couldn't handle how the game ended.
Yeah.
And that was a little embarrassing. I mean, probably for all of us, but certain things were said, certain things were done. So you kind of learned a lot, and again, you kind of learn from setbacks. And it's not about like everything I learned since my mom passed away. It's not too much of like what happens to you. It's way more of how you respond to it. And I think that as coaches and players, we learned how to. So we got back. We got tripped up in 2013. Oscar Smith came to watch us. They were sitting in the stands, and I think our guys got to looking at them. And we're going to get you next week. And then we end up losing to a team we shouldn't have. Yeah. And then that was kind of that was heartbreaking. And then all of a sudden you make your way back and then get to it in 2014. I think we put tape on the guys' doors in 2012. Like if I wake up in the morning on midnight and in the hotel and your tape isn't on the door, you're not playing, worried about some of the guys acting up, but then when we went back in 2014, some of those guys were still on that team, like a Giovanni Simmons, and it was like, I'm not putting tape on your doors. You guys know this is a business trip. We come here to execute and take care of business, And I think that was probably a big thing. There were maybe the maturity of the team and of the staff really helped us kind of come through. And it wasn't that, you had to I had to make sure that the guys were behaving in the hotel and not wilding out. It was more so they all understood it. And when they understand that, it's, my job is way easier, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I think that was probably the biggest difference.
And at the end of your Ocean Lakes career, is there any, not to get into anything exactly what happened, but is there any regrets towards the end on how anything was handled, or is it more kind of bittersweet since you got?
No, I think a lot of people, looking back at how things happened, a lot of people I don't think kind of realize what did happen. Yeah. You kind of go through and a so-called recruiting violation here or there, and it's not. You go back to look at what happened, and there was nothing that was found that we recruited someone. It was all based upon perception. Yeah. And so with that said, it was, well, if you refute this, it could cost these guys some eligibility. My son being one, I recruited my son. Come on, it's hilarious. And then at the time we were living with my mother-in-law, helping because my father-in-law got into a really bad accident, and I was accused of having Levante Taylor move in with me. I'm look, I can barely live at my in-laws' house. He's not there living with us. What are y'all talking about? So some of those things. But again, it's just anything in social media to these days. You can't really believe what you read here or there, but it was a lesson that, even to this day, that I think, I remember Dr. Askew saying, you're such an admirable man. I was I'm not gonna, I was the school's not penalized, the kids aren't penalized. All right, I'll go ahead and eat 5 games. I'll eat, whatever games. And so with that said, I don't think other people, because I never really talked about some of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes that CJ saw, my daughter saw, things that, emails that are going back and forth of things that weren't true, Yeah. But at the end of the day, still love Ocean Lakes. Like I said, my daughter's there, great people there teaching, mentoring her. Couldn't be happier for that. But, also, God works in mysterious ways, definitely would love to. I'm a mama's boy to this day and give anything in the world to be able to have another day with her, just, 5 minutes with her. But again, it's how you respond to certain things and open up some really good opportunities to do something that's never happened in the 757, and that's take our football to a national type of scope. And and the experiment I think was pretty successful, but it's just not what our area is kind of ready for. Like the private school in Washington D.C. or the private schools in Jersey and the private school league out in California and even in Ohio, that's kind of like where sports are really big. But here it's kind of reverse. It's not like private school sector sports are really big. Not that they're great, not that they're not good, they're great, but it's like the more talented players are more so in the public school than private school, traditionally, at least for football. So it was great to be able to travel. I mean, our guys got a chance to, instead of like the bus ride down to like Lancetown, we're taking a plane to IMG or a bus all the way down to Georgia. And so those types of experiences and learning like how people coach at other levels and going against players. I mean, you talk about like having one Division I player on your team, like that's pretty special, right? Well, imagine like going against an offensive line that every single player on their team is Division I. Like I've had a lot of Division I players, but not like a lot of Division I offensive linemen. Go back to like from left tackle to right tackle are Division I, and we're going against those guys, and so that competition was really tough, and it taught us, like, I think coaching staff, like what competition truly is outside the country. So that was fun. But yeah, I don't no regrets. Just regret like having to leave, but not having to. I didn't have to, and obviously it was more so kind of was like, well, maybe this is something that you kind of did a great job at home, took care there, got like the first state championship. But I've learned if people are upset when you leave, then you did something right. Because like if they're upset with you, then you kind of, I hate to say that, but if you didn't and they're like, well, good riddance, I'm glad that goes. And I'm sure there's probably a couple of those people out there too, but at the end of the day, I felt like it was probably more so that means you kind of left it better than you found it, in those regards. So, but no, I love it. Love Ocean Lakes to this day. Hadn't had a chance to coach against them. That would probably that'd be tough to do holistically, but maybe we'll bump into each other in the playoffs. That'd be interesting.
All right, moving forward, deciding to do that one more.
Oh no.
Moving forward, deciding to leave Ocean Lakes. Like, what made you like land on Bishop and like how like?
Yeah, so it's crazy. So I got to go back to Justin Smith was being awarded with an award academically, and he was going to the Naval Academy. And we sat at the same table as actually the athletic director at Bishop Sullivan. And in hindsight, little did I know that they were like seeking me out because they had this plan to kind of like go and have national. And I didn't even know. I just sitting there eating the chicken and being happy for Justin going to the Naval Academy. And then next thing you know, you have numbers of teachers and athletic directors from every, so it's hey, if we can scrimmage one time or something, let me know. So it's like you exchange phone numbers, and little did I know that they were actually kind of recruiting to find a coach that would help them go to so I was like, all right, kind of looked into it a couple, a little bit more, and it's like, it's one of those things you just get off of a season, and then it's, well, we're ready to start the off season, but I didn't expect to like even be presented with an opportunity like that, and so you look into it, it's like, well, say I won't. Right? It's like one of those things, really straight up. I mean, it's like, say I won't. All right, well, y'all keep dogging me here. There's a part of me too. It was like, well, y'all kind of like public eye keeps dogging me. I'll go private and kind of have a little chip on my shoulder that way too. And so they said I won't, so I did. And it was, and I look back at it, it was like still, like I said, a good experience and all that kind of stuff. But and taught me a lot. And then in hindsight, made my way back to the public school sector all in all. So, but yeah, interesting twist.
How much harder was it game planning each week at Bishop as opposed to Ocean Lakes, where you just had to worry about like a Kempsville? And it's like,
and Kempsville's good these days. Coach Cherry.
Yeah, I think one the other day.
Coach Cherry was an assistant coach with me with Coach Prince when I first started out, and he's now the head coach there. So it's great. We to see him do some good things. So shout out to Coach Cherry. But the difference is I think that when you're in the like you said, in kind of locally, a lot of times, it's like they say the NFL is a copycat league. Yeah. So, like even around here, like some people that run the wing tee, or you see others coverage wise, everybody kind of sitting in the cover 3 here and there, and not too much difference. But then going against the national talent, I mean, those guys get paid $100,000 plus to coach football, and they don't teach. Like they do football all day. And so it was strategically was tough. The other thing is the travel, like you said, not just getting ready to play against Kempsville and having to travel 25 minutes, but having to leave on a Wednesday because we're going all the way down to Georgia, still have all your schoolwork done, which it's a Catholic private school, a little challenging that way, and having to have all that stuff done and then not have the same type of practice routines and all that was interesting, because it's like calling colleges. What do you guys do when you have to take a bus as opposed to just fly out and here and there? And so all that kind of again was part of development, and it was a lot harder. Like I said, you look at the guys that you're going against and top to bottom, like over the 3 years that we were there, I had one time done a statistic, and we basically coached against over 275 Division I athletes in 3 years. Just think about that. Like Patrick Surtain playing NFL first round, starts as a true freshman. Morgan Moses, at Alabama, those guys we played against, like American Heritage. We brought them here to the 757. Tough story. We almost beat IMG, right? So we had them 7-6 all the way through the fourth quarter, come up short. And then the first game of the next year, we play American Heritage, which had there was a thing that was going around Twitter about 2-3 weeks ago, and 4 or 5 of their guys made it to the NFL from that one team that we played. We had them 7-6 into the fourth quarter and almost beat them. Sad story, Jake Lowe ends up tearing his ACL on the second to last play of that game. CJ and him pretty good friends and all that stuff, and he's not like a son to me, but all my guys are sons to me. But known him since playing Pop Warner together, and I hate seeing that, so it felt bad. I called my dad. I'm leaving the stadium, and he's like, I'm like, yeah. It looks like Jake, I'm just finishing up, it looks like he possibly tore his ACL, trying to get him hooked up, get mom and dad to go get checked out with a certain doctor. He's like, man, that's disappointing. I'm, pray for him. And then he asked me, he was like, hey, when are you going to beat a team from Florida in the fourth quarter? I'm like, damn, Dad. We lost against IMG, everybody talking junk about it. We're the closest team to play them that way when they won a national championship that year, ranked the number 1 in the country, and we do it with just 757 kids, not kids from around the entire country. And then we take on that American Heritage team, and then my dad's first response to me is yeah, so when are you going to finally beat one of those teams? I'm like, damn. But so great experience, I think, all the way around in development. And like I said, exciting times all the way to where we bring Don Bosco, number 2 team in the country, over to Oscar Smith last year. And that stuff has not been done. There's been some teams that have been brought down. Oscar Smith traditionally has always played, they had a schedule where you could always kind of bring people in from out of town. And they did that, so that was kind of neat. Virginia Beach really didn't have that opportunity to play outside the district. So
teams in there.
Yeah. So good experiences, great experiences.
So moving on to your next chapter, having to search around and stuff, and finally land on the rival of Ocean Lakes in Oscar.
Right.
I remember that shocked everybody as soon as you picked out.
Yeah, a little bit like KD.
Yeah. It was one of those things say I won't, right? So, that was very unique. So the backdrop to that is that, CJ ended up having went through having a torn ACL, ended up having a shoulder that would pop out that last year that he played. His shoulder would pop out 3 or 4 times a game, and he had to get it put back in and stuff like that. And so I think he was kind of getting to where how much more should my body kind of go through this type stuff. And he was like, maybe I should graduate at a certain time. At the time, I was actually had a couple. One of my high school, one of my college coaches that recruited me to go to Hampton-Sydney. He actually got the defensive coordinator job at UNC, and it was man, is there any way I could probably try to make my way to go to UNC or something? One of my really good friends from Ocean Lakes is actually a big time donor at UNC, so it's man. He's calling, could you get in and coach there? And I'm I don't know, it's kind of tough. But, kind of looking at some other opportunities, Tech had some new stuff, and, potentially looking at, well, should I look at going to the next level? And so that's really what I was looking at. And then CJ was like, well, maybe I should go ahead and try to graduate, a little earlier. And I always wanted to obviously coach him. I don't know how much he liked it, but I loved it. It's like one of those things, bittersweet probably at times. But so it was like, had that going on, and then I talked to Coach Head, and I think Ocean Lakes was playing. They played in the regional champions or state semifinals? Manchester, and I get a call after that game, and it was like, yeah, I heard you're going over to Oscar Smith, and I'm like, what? I didn't even talk to anybody at Oscar Smith. So I was like, well, hold on, let me go give the principal a call and see like what this is about. So I called the school and was like, yeah, I speak to Mr. Joseph. They're like, who's this? I'm like, Coach Scott, and he's like, Coach who? And so there's a coach over there was looking to possibly retire, and I guess that's, again, don't believe everything that's on the internet. So there was no validity to me like going to Oscar Smith at that time, but I was like, well, let me see if this is true. And so I called Mr. Joseph and Coach Johnson at the time, Scott Johnson, and it was true that he potentially was looking at maybe retiring, and so that they would have an opening. And then I saw that they did have an opening, and so I was like, well, I'm gonna apply, see what it's like, because it's like, do I do the college thing? Not. And then obviously, one of the better high schools around here, you get to a point to where like, as a coach, I don't like Nick Saban leaves LSU and Michigan State to go to Alabama. You get to where like there's certain jobs where you're not going to take over maybe a 0-10 team. Like you kind of work your way up to where I want to be part of like people that are pretty serious about football, And I think that obviously they have been serious about football, and so it is a good mix and kind of going over there. But I kind of also like you said, it's like the shock and awe. It was kind of like one of those things where it's like, well, dang, like what is this about? And I kind of like that. It was kind of all right, let's see how many people are gonna really like Coach Scott coming over. And I don't think at first maybe some of their fanatics, true fans, like were like, who's this guy coming over, but connected again with, it's all about relationships and working for the kids. And there was some special kids there. We took over, there was only 2 returning starters coming back from the year before, and guys coming up from the JV, and then we go and make it to the state championship. We almost beat Highland Springs, who was ranked the number 23 team in the country, with guys that hadn't even played varsity downs, and like we again kind of doing some of the stuff we did at Bishop, and the success obviously working way up Ocean Lakes, and so and then turn around and have COVID and win 2 back-to-back state championships has been kind of a blessing in disguise, because the winning is one thing, but like the guys you're seeing and helping and put into college, it goes back to like the Billy Higgins of the world. Like that's what it's all about, really, in my opinion, is like helping people, do things that they didn't imagine or think that they would possibly do, and guys going on to get their degrees and stuff like that. And so it's been a great opportunity over there to help out those guys, and then along the way you get a chance to win some football games, which obviously is fun.
Yeah. Did you do you find coaching public school more fun than private school, because it's a little bit more relaxed, I guess, in a way, because you don't have to worry about national talent each week?
Yeah, so I probably like that part of it, though. I like the national talent, but and because that's the challenge, like I always want to like go against the best, right? Iron sharpens iron, just like that. Like having a great team, and they practice against one another, and maybe they get better even in practice than they do maybe in some games, because the talent's not the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I definitely like that part of it. But the part that having the rivalries, like, I remember like when Coach Prince was at Ocean Lakes, and I was playing there, and I think maybe some guys from his former team, because he came over from Cox, like came and like did some donuts on our field, and it was like, and we weren't great at the time. He's building up a whole program, and it was like, man, we're gonna get those guys, like, and it was, so you have like kind of like the home like town rivalries, like the fact of, you say Oscar Smith, Ocean Lakes, like that's crazy, like for him to go over there, like it kind of adds a little bit to that drama, or the plot twist, if you will, right? So that's the part that I do miss, like the hometown stuff. And at Ocean Lakes, Mr. DeVinny, our first principal, it was the phrase always was building great traditions, like to build great traditions. And I think that's like what Coach Prince and I tried to carry on with like the I am somebody speech, like those things, like having those traditions, as opposed to like Oscar Smith, who's been around for decades and has tradition, and you can kind of see. But again, it's all about that hometown feel. That's what I like the most about the public school, that you kind of still have that, you know, that type of rivalry. And you know, it gets heated around here in the 757 competition, right?
Yeah.
And it ain't for everybody, right? It ain't for the weak and weary. So yeah, I love that part probably the most. And then, you know, trying to, you know, put on for your city, so to speak, whatever, you know, the cliche or the phrase is, or your school. So I think that's what makes it probably more special to me. When you get into the private school sector, it's like a lot of guys, like, you recruiting, and they're recruiting to come to that school. So it's all about like, do I get that scholarship or not? And then it's like, it kind of takes away from some of those relationships. It's like not always about a scholarship. It shouldn't be about it.
Yeah.
To me, don't get me wrong, scholarships are about it, and you need help. And for me, I know I've gotten more people into college than any high school coach around this area, you know, and that's something that I pride myself on way more than winning a state championship, you know. But at the end of the day, it's really kind of building men to be successful at whatever they want to do, whether it's a trade, whether it's, you know, and hopefully to use football that way, that's what you can teach them. Like, you got to put in time in the off season, right? You have to study, that's what you got to do for your business. Like, a business just doesn't start, right? Like, a podcast doesn't start. There's like a lot of ideas, a lot of people that tell you can't. So you're like, all right, say I won't, right? Right? So like all of that, and you take that from football and hopefully you impart that to people. And I feel like when it's just about like, hey, I'm coming here just because Coach Scott and the program can help me get a scholarship, it's like, don't get me wrong, that could be maybe what attracts people, but you lose that when guys come in just as a senior and you didn't have to, I've known you forever, right? Like, you're doing CJ running around going way back, you know, and who's to say now I'm sitting on your first podcast? That's pretty cool. That's what to me it's about, you know. I think sometimes you miss out with when the way that we try to go about it and I love Bishop. I'd go back there to coach. I love the people there. It was a great experience. Miss Lisa and Lindsay and Miss Harmeyer, all that it became, you know, a great experience there. But at the same time, that the way that we went about it, I probably would do it a little differently when or if I go back, because somebody says I won't.
So, like, outside of football, like, what do you like to do? Just regular day stuff.
Oh man, work out, which I need to do a little bit more of, right? Like, that's been the thing, like putting on a little weight here and there. But I love I've been back working out for about a good 2.5, 3 weeks, and like pulling the sled or pushing it as opposed to telling somebody to do it. I forgot like how good that felt. Like, it's like, oh man, still got a little something back there, you know, like it's like, yeah, I work out, love to watch a little bit of basketball, play basketball. My knees are getting a little bit better, but you know, they hurt at times, but like to play some basketball. Don't get me on the dance floor because I've been known to cut a rug, right? And I sent that to actually in the chat with Justin Hunter and LaFonte Thurgood and a couple guys, Sage guys that played at Ocean Lakes, and I sent this TikTok, and it's like this guy that grabs a microphone at the wedding, and he's like, you know, he ends up breaking it down on a song, and I'm like, I'm getting ready to be like this at the wedding, you know? So it's like hanging out with family and having a good time. That's probably the best thing. And it's like kind of like what I like for football to be. It's like a family, the locker room and the guys, and you know, that's what we always talk about. So hanging out with them and doing anything but and having a good time, like I said, and be careful because I could end up being a viral sensation on the dance floor. I
heard you said the NBA, you watch basketball, like, so
yeah.
Is with the playoffs going on, your team in it right now, or you just?
I kind of, I've never really, like, I guess some people would say you're a bandwagon. I like guys, like I like players, you know, like that's always kind of been my thing when I watch, but like a coach or, you know, a certain player and how his game. Obviously a Michael Jordan fan. I've always been a LeBron fan. You know, I hate to see that he's not in it. I kind of like seeing, you know, Boston beat up on Kyrie. You know, it's like, you know, the guys kind of like getting back to that Division III type deal. Like, you're going up against the monster, and you didn't think that like this the not the superstars or the best players would kind of give and put up that much resistance. And obviously them being up right now is kind of neat against KD and Kyrie. So I don't know if I said I'd have to cheer for a team right now. I like to see what Boston. I like Boston's deal. Not ever really been a big Steph Curry fan because I'm like, man, they call touchy fouls now. It's always jump shots. Like, go back to the '80s, like when you got roughed up and you get fouled, and like that's kind of like playing tough basketball. But no, I like it. I've always said, like, if you took a lacrosse player, the basketball player, and a soccer player, those three guys, body types and skill sets, and you mix them together, you have the best football player. And that's like because of footwork, size, and toughness. Because lacrosse players have to be tough, right? Skill set. You play basketball, a lot of times you're an athlete. You can kind of like make adjustments to the ball and stuff like that. So I'm a big fan of it. We'll see how it goes. I like to see some good games, and it seems like but there's been a lot of plot twist already with some of the injuries. I like Booker.
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems to be tough, but I don't see what happens. Seeing what Chris Paul does, like, dang, the old heads can still do it.
What about like music wise? Like, you listen to any rap or anything?
Everything. Like from country to rap to, I don't know about this mumble rap these days.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like I was just saying, like Meek Mill, probably one of the guys. Obviously a big Jay-Z fan, Eminem fan, but love my country as well. I know, like, that was a big thing too. Like, if you go back and with Billy or Trotman, I remember, like, after the games, like, they'd end up playing like Kentucky, well, not Kentucky, but country. What is it? Chicken fry on with what's the Zach Brown band, and they get to singing that song on his country. It's like, what are these guys doing? They're singing country. Yeah, so kind of like a little bit of everything, probably not a big like heavy metal fan. And then some of the stuff is like, man, I ain't listening to this, man. Like come on, man.
If you can name your top 5 like recording artists like ever,
Dead or alive, huh?
Yeah, dead or alive.
Top 5, dead or alive. I think Jay-Z. I think obviously seeing what he's done is obviously one. I gotta put Eminem in the mix. I like go back to Jadakiss. Jadakiss is probably one of my favorite guys. And Biggie. I was probably more of a Biggie fan than I was Tupac, but Biggie and Tupac, I guess you kind of throw those guys in there. So that would probably give you about 4 or 5 in there.
Yeah.
What are your favorite like TV shows or movies right now?
ESPN. I don't know. I got in. CJ came home and over the break and got me into Snowfall. Watch that. It's like
Everybody says it's good. I haven't watched it.
He got me addicted to it. I don't like to watch TV for real like that. It's like I get angry and all of a sudden like I'm not working to get better. Like like I kind of practice what I preach, right? There's no days off, right? You don't watch TV. But Snowfall was fun. I got like hooked on that and watched that for a little bit. But I'm kind of more of like a documentary or like series type guy. Like throw on my daughter would joke me like, there he goes watching the Animal Planet again or something. And I'm like, I always do these like things like with the guys, like everybody wants to be a beast until they gotta do what beasts do. So I like try to find like when a lion would like be eating another animal or something, and like this is what we're doing. I remember like playing against Cox, and they had they had 3 or 4 guys that were real big inside, and we were a little undersized, So I played like the honey badger, like beating up this other, like a Billy Higgins and a honey badger type guy. So I kind of like watching, I don't know, looking for something there to kind of motivate. But my daughter always jokes me. She's like, can you just change the channel? I'm like, all right, I'll go like do some push-ups or something. Just TV.
For animal documentaries, you gotta switch to cheetahs. Lions, trust me, they're not really like that. They're not really like that. We did extensive research. They're not really like that. Yeah, but cheetahs, if they want it, they're gonna get it every single time.
Yeah.
Even the babies.
Yeah, like even the babies.
All right, I'm gonna have to look that up.
All right, so we got a little bit of knowing you off the field. So in terms of back to on the field, anything like future wise, like I know you're still at Astor Smith right now, but do you have like any aspirations to go pro or like D1, any type of college?
Yeah, I think that I feel like my niche is, and what's important to me is helping build young men. Like I think the pros is something that maybe like they make more money than the coaches. They kind of tell and I don't obviously coaching in the NFL. That's like that would be like what the pinnacle, so to speak, at the top if you had to like think of it. But with that said, like kind of look at what do you get out of football. I think like anybody that plays a sport, what do you get out of it? Like what did it teach you, right? You know. And so for me, like what do I get out of football? For me is like I get like helping develop men, and I think maybe you can still do that in college. That's why that's appealing. But I never thought I would like women's volleyball as much as I do now. And that's because my daughter plays. She's a beast. Obviously, she plays defense, right? Obviously, a libero. And so I love watching her play, and she competes and gets after it. And so like being able to watch her play, and then maybe even get a chance to watch her in college, I think sometimes keeps me in my arena of I might like to continue to stick around and help maybe in that development of men, which allows me maybe some more time to go watch her play. So it kind of comes down to that. But at the end of the day, one coach taught me to always say, I'm always interested, like, so you're always interested to see, like, maybe it's something that you didn't know. Like I told Dr. Askew and my dad at times, I thought I would retire and spend 30 years at Ocean Lakes and then, coach there for 40 years. And then you never realize, like, what he has in store for you, right? Mm-hmm. So I think always being interested in something to see like if it would work out. But I think I love coaching and helping develop men. So if there's another place or opportunity for that ends up being a great opportunity for me, I'm always interested, right? But right now I love where what we're doing now.
All right, well, it's been a great interview, but we got one more question for you. With you having to push, like with you being such a 757 legend and you pushing out all the D1 athletes that you have, to like the younger viewers that are trying to get noticed by like colleges and stuff, like what's like some of your like advice to them?
I would say, the what is in the dark always comes out in light, right? Like, so if you're working and staying off social media, and I say like don't, I'm not saying like never look at it, but like the guys who work and not have to post a workout, right? It's one thing to post to show what you can do, but just every single second, like this is what I'm eating now, and this is it, like stay away from that to where it's all about that grind really in regards to constantly working to get better. If you're sticking to that, it's gonna work out. Like a guy like Billy, who kept working, keeps working, breaks tackle records, and he's an undersized linebacker that not supposed to be able to do it. And that teaches, so to me, for those guys who are looking, I would say just continue to work out. The off season is important. Everybody loves 7-on-7. I think there's a great advantage to that, but weight room is where it's at. You guys, I'm gonna do my research on the cheetah and the lion thing. But the reason why, everybody, you got to have fast players. So you kind of think of like the cheetah too, right? Cheetahs are super fast, right? But football is a power sport, and that's why I kind of like the lion. You gotta kind of be bulked up. It's you don't like it's like semi trucks and like F-150s running into each other. That's really what it's like. So you have to be able to withstand that and play at the next level. You look at Tyreek Hill. He's small, right? Yeah. His neck is like as thick as his table. Like his neck is as thick as the laptop right there, right? Like that's Tyreek Hill. He's the small, quick, fast guy. So I would always say the weight room, it's a power sport. The 40-yard dash is something that's you have to have power to do. It's 16 steps. You gotta, so be in the weight room, work hard there, and at the end of the day, just continue to work on your craft. You put the hours in. Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours, and you become, hopefully at the top of your craft, and it can work out for you, like at Division III or Division I. So that's what I would say. Just keep working there, and obviously, you got to have the grades to do it. So take care of the schoolwork.
All right, that was a great first episode. Hopefully we get that back one day.
Yeah,
thank you for being on here.
No doubt. Good luck with this, and excited to hear. Who else is going to be up here. So I'll be listening.
All right. Thank you.